Okay, so let's get started and let's switch to English. Good morning. Good morning. We will continue with our 7 segments exercise. We will dive deeper into Angular signals. And of course, we have a lot to practice. But before we start anything new, I would like to quickly recap the homework, the exercise that I gave you. Let me refresh your memories. What we did last time is we created this 7 segments display where we used multiple standalone components in Angular, and we used signals for the first time to display the number in a regular way with usual digits and usual fonts, and then we created this 7 segments display. And what I gave you as homework is not level 1, because this is something that we can do today, but level 2 or level 3 and or level 4. I created sample solutions for level 2 and for level 3. I did not create a sample solution for level 4 because it's a lot of work. If you do the work, kudos, send me a pull request. You can definitely earn a big plus for your grade if you want to do it, but if you do level 2 and level 3, that's fine for this course. Now, let me show you how we can implement level 2 and level 3. It's just a repetition of what we did last time in a little bit more complicated environment. Let's talk about level 2. Now, level 2 should be a more flexible way of displaying the 7 segment number component, because we want to have an input parameter controlling the number of digits to display. So far, if you take a look what we did last time, let me show you that, we had exactly 4 digits. See? This is what we did last time. And in the TypeScript code, we created signals for each and every of those digits. Now, what I wanted with level 2 is that you create a variation of our Angular component that is not limited to 4 digits, but that can handle 5 digits, 6 digits, 7 digits, however many digits you want. Did anybody try the homework? Very nice. I like that. Did anybody successfully complete this part of the homework? Okay, also some. Okay, a little bit. Very good. It's really important that you try it. It's fine if you have questions. This is why we discuss the homework here in school. Please take a look at my sample solution and then feel free to tell me what you did differently. Okay? So I added the sample solution with 2 pull requests. If you take, sorry, not pull requests, commits. If we take a look at history, you see that I created here 1 commit. That is the complete solution for level 2. So if you just want to know what I did to solve this one, just click on this one and you will see a nice difference view for what I did in order to add it. You can also, instead of taking a look at the commit history of my GitHub repository, simply go to source and app, and then you see the 7 segment number level 2 here, and that is essentially most of the interesting part. And this is exactly what I would like to show you now. Let me quickly copy this link to Discord so you can easily follow along. You can also just clone my repo and open it, but I will send you the link if you want to follow along on your screen. Okay, so you got the link on the Discord server, and here you see the code in Visual Studio Code. Let's take a look at what I did here to solve level 2. Now, it's essentially a copy of the original 7 segment number component with a few changes. The first change is this one here. As you can see, I added an additional field here in our component class, which is a signal. But the type of the signal is interesting, because the type of the signal is an unknown array. Does anybody have an idea why I created a signal of type array? What could be the benefit of having an array instead of just a number where I say We need 3 digits, or 4, or 5. Why an array? And not just a number, yes?
You just have to get the index and not calculate by to some point.
Maybe, but that was not the main reason. Yeah?
For displaying?
For displaying, and why is it important for displaying? I can iterate with ngFor. Exactly, that's the point. Yes, exactly. ngFor needs a thing over which I can iterate. And the simplest way of creating something over which I can iterate is by creating an array, right? Now the interesting thing here is the data type. Did you know that TypeScript has a data type which is called unknown? That's really strange, right? A data type which we don't know. The fact is, if you don't care about the data type, if it could be anything, you can say any, or you can also say unknown. I don't know what's in there, and I really don't care. This is what you express with unknown. The only thing that we are interested in is that it's an array, and that is exactly what unknown array does. I don't know what's in there, but it's an array. That is what I know. So this is the first signal that I added compared to the original version of the component. Then, you see, for the sake of simplicity, I also added, and that's a repetition from last time, a computed signal. Can you remember what I told you last time? A signal is something where you store something and it can automatically inform the surroundings, hey, I changed. And computed is business logic which sits on top of a signal. The business logic is also automatically recalculated whenever the fundamental signals on which the business logic is based on will change. The values are also cached, so it is made sure that the business logic is only calculated when absolutely needed. And here I'm simply accessing the length property of this array here in order to get a helper signal number of digits. Okay, that's good. Now the number of digits, as you can see here, has also an input. Can you remember? Input is important because then we can do data binding with this component. And in this case, I'm just very simply creating a new array and pushing the relevant number of elements in the array. So if we say 5 digits, we will end up with an array with 5 elements. If we say 6 digits, we will end up with an array with 6 digits. I think you got the point, right? That is what I do, and then we set the entire property to the new array. Good, nice. And last but not least, compared to the old implementation, let me show you the old implementation here. Oh no, that's the wrong one. This one, this is the correct one. In the old implementation, we had these 4 signals here, and one helper method, getDigit, which was used to get the digit 1, 2, and 3, as you can see it here. Now the new implementation cannot follow this approach anymore because we have a flexible number of digits to display. Therefore, I did the following. I made this getDigit function public, and it is also a computed signal, as you can see here. And what do? I simply take the digit, I calculate the digit by taking the number, dividing it by 10 to the power of the current index. So, see, if I have, for instance, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and if I'm looking for the 4, so for the outer right digit, I'm saying 10 to the power of 0, and that is 1. So we divide by 1. No problem. We divide by 1. Division by 1 remains the 0. And at the end of the day, we calculate with the modulo operator so that we get exactly that digit. Now, if we take a look at the second digit, it would work a little bit differently. We would have 10 to the power of 1. That is 10. So we divide this one by 10. So we get rid of the 4. Then we do the modulo operator, and that gives us the digit 3. Very simple algorithm. The only thing that might be a little bit hard to understand is this if here. What does this if mean? Now, what you have to think about is what happens if I have the number 10, for instance. If I apply the algorithm without the if statement, I will get a result of 0, 0, 1, 0. So I will get leading zeros. Understood? I don't want leading zeros. So here I check whether the remaining digit is lower than 1 in order to get rid of these two digits here. Last but not least, this is only relevant if we have the index greater than 0, because if the number is 0, we don't want to have 0, 0, 0, 0, and we do not want to have space, 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 space. This is not what we want. We want exactly 1, 0, and this is why I have this here. Yeah, that's just to beautify. I think you got the point so far, right? It's not very complicated, but the point is this algorithm now works in a flexible way. It's no longer baked in that we have exactly 4 elements. Got it? Good? Perfect. Very good. Let me show you the HTML and then we can discuss your solutions if you did something differently. Let's go to the HTML and compare the HTML with the old version of the HTML. I will put them side by side. Can I make it a little bit smaller? Can you still read it, at least roughly? Is it okay? Okay, very good. So let's take a look at the code. On the right-hand side, you see that we have a fixed implementation with exactly 4 data bindings. The data bindings are using and that's the important one, signals. That's the important one, okay? We are using the signals that we were discussing before. Every single digit is using an SVG, Scalable Vector Graphic Translation, in order to move the digit on the correct position. So the first digit is not moved at all, the second is moved by 11 pixel, the third is moved by 22 pixel, and the fourth is moved by 32 pixel. Okay? Good, that's fine. Now let's take a look at the new implementation. The key difference is the ngFor, as you can see it here. We discussed ngFor in details last year. We have used it over and over and over and over again. And here we see that ngFor works beautifully if you combine it with a signal. So we simply say, give me the array of digits, and we can iterate over the digits, and it will repeat the digit. And then we simply use the getDigit function that you can see here in order to get the relevant digit. Last but not least, the translation must now be calculated. We cannot simply say 11, 22, 33, but we have to take 11 and multiply it by I. So first iteration has a shift by 0 pixel, second by 11, third by 22, fourth by 33, and so on and so on and so on. Got it? When I did this implementation, I made one very stupid mistake, a very stupid mistake. I was looking for a bug for, I think, 15 minutes because it simply didn't work. You know what my mistake was? I forgot to enlarge the surrounding SVG. So my algorithm worked perfectly fine, but I didn't see the digits because they were outside of the visual area of the SVG. So that was very, very stupid, and I was angry at myself that I was so stupid. So it's important to also scale the SVG graphic accordingly. So we have to calculate the width of the graphic and the view box dynamically. Don't worry, at your final exam, at your Matura, you will not get something with SVG or something like this. This is just to show you what's possible, okay? This is why we have a little bit more time here while we discuss our exercises, and I hope you find it interesting. Now let's run this guy, and then let's discuss it a little bit. Here, stop this one, run that one. starting, coming up. Let's open it up. And as you can see here, now we have the 7-segment displays with level 2. And if I increase the number of digits, you will see that it works very nicely. I now have 6 digits. Okay? I simply added it to the test driver. So if you want to see how I did it there, it's here in the number display test, nothing special, just level 2, and I also bound the number of digits to this input field. Okay, let's discuss. What did you do differently? For those of you who managed to solve this exercise, did you do it in a similar way? I would really love to hear your thoughts. I will pause the recording here so that we can have an easy discussion. Yep, so we have at least one different approach that works pretty nicely. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I would like to show you one neat little trick, which we will dive in a little bit deeper today. For displaying this form. It has nothing to do with signals and standalone components, but hey, we are here in the area of web front-end development, so we should definitely take a look at it. Now, what is this thing about? Please take a look at this form that you see here. Do you note something special? Here we have the labels and they are neatly right aligned. And do you see the input fields? They are very nicely aligned on the left-hand side, so we have a nice little form. Typically, if you do nothing, it would look very differently. It would say something like number to display, something like this, and then it would say number of digits. And what we would see is we would have the input box here, and the next input box here, and that would not be beautiful. Because here you have this not very clean look and feel. How would you achieve this alignment? Do you have ideas? What comes to your mind when you see this problem? How would you solve it? Yeah? With CSS grids, exactly. So you already know what CSS grids are. Ah, I'm happy. Did you cover that in other lessons, or was it just your interest and you looked into it yourself? I don't think we did CSS grids. I think if we did, awesome. Then let's quickly recap. CSS grids look like that. I really don't think that we did grids last year. We did flex layout, something like this, but not grids. Grids is something I can't remember. Maybe I forgot it, but I'm not sure. Grids are super nice. So what you essentially do with grids, you can read a lot about grids on the internet. You have a container. See that one? That's the form. Here we have the CSS specification for the form container. And here you simply say display grid, and then you specify so-called grid template columns. How many columns does your grid have? And then you can specify the intended width of the column. The first one is max content. So what the system does, it's looking up the largest content of all the different rows, which would be number to display, and sizes the column according to the largest content. This is what we see here, the max content, the largest content. The second column is sized automatically based on the content, so the size of the input field. And what it now does, because we have exactly 2 columns, it will take the first 2 HTML elements and align them in these 2 columns. The next 2 elements will be aligned in the next row. The next 2 elements will be aligned in the next row. So it's very clean and very simple to get this nice look and feel. And it's also very nice and simple to create a responsive layout because you can use CSS media queries in order to change the CSS look and feel. So if you want to build a website that looks nicely on a mobile phone and nicely on a big screen, it's very simple to achieve that. And it's not complicated, right? You simply say, hey, give me a grid. These are my 2 columns. Done. Isn't that nice? Really simple. No need for tables and things like that. Yes, we have a question, please. So remember that when you have to build grids, something like the thing that I showed you now, this is really nice. You will get a homework today where you can practice that, and we will also practice that in the lesson today. Very nice. Any further question regarding level 2? Are we good? Nice. So let's talk about level 3. Level 3 was a little bit more difficult because in level 3, let's take a look at the requirements. Make a 7-segment number component that supports a decimal point. The number of decimal places, also known as the precision, can be fixed. That will be the simple solution. Or, if you want an extra challenge, can be configurable via an input parameter. And I made the sample solution for the extra challenge. And this is what we are going to take a look at. Who tried level 3? Okay. Who succeeded in level 3? Nice. Very good. So we have at least some solutions. I like that. Let's take a look at level 3. Now, let's take a look at the TypeScript code. In my solution, I did something which I told you is possible, but I've never shown it to you. And now you are in the final grade, so we can do the advanced stuff. What I did is I applied object-oriented inheritance in order to create a specialized version of the component. That's absolutely possible in TypeScript and Angular. Because our component should have all the properties of the level 2 and just adds additional functionality. So what I did is I simply extended level 2 and did not copy the entire code. We didn't do that so far, but I wanted to show you that this is possible. You simply inherit, just like with any other object-oriented programming language, you simply inherit all the features of level 2. Got it? It's really simple, nothing special here. Now, what do we have to add? The first 2 things that we have to add are, on the one hand side, the signal. This is just a numeric signal that stores the precision, meaning the number of digits after the comma, storing the number of digits after the comma in a signal. And we have the input setter, which directly converts or transfers the value into the signal. We did that last time multiple times. Here you see it in another example. Now, granted, the getDigit method becomes a little bit more complicated, but it is still okay. Let's take a look at the getDigit method. This one here covers the case where we are extracting a digit behind the comma. In this case, I do the following. Imagine that we have a 1234.56, something like this, and I want to have, let's say, the digit 5 here. Okay, so that would be index 1, because we would start with index 0, that would be on the right-hand side, and then we move our way to the left. Now, what I do here is I multiply, not divide, but I multiply with 10 to the power of the current index where I am. So in this case, I am getting 12345.6. See that one? And then I simply apply the modulo operator, and that gives me the number 5. Got it? So here I multiply 10 to the power of the corresponding index. And if I am in front of the comma, we have exactly the same business logic as before. We simply divide. Okay? So it's not really a lot of code. Please note the keyword override here. The keyword override changes the behavior which was defined in the base class. We looked at the base class a few minutes ago. The base class already has a getDigit, but we want to change the behavior of the getDigit method. And in TypeScript, you simply say override. You know override from other programming languages, right? Okay, I see you nodding. Very good, very good. Now, the tricky part in this exercise, in this level, was the HTML. In fact, it's... Oh, I made a mistake. I see I made a mistake here. I think I can't do it like that. I simplified it now. Okay. The tricky part is that we need these circles. And what I essentially did is I took the single digit, you see it? And then I have drawn the circle, in my case, in x coordinate 11 and y coordinate 17. That will give us something like this. If we have the number, let's say 7, then the circle will be somewhere here. Okay? That is where the circle is. And what I do is I move the ngFor and the translation up one level into a group that combines the digit with the circle. Got it? Before, we had the ngFor directly on the digit. Let me show you how I did it. Here we had the digit, that's the digit, and we had the ngFor directly at the digit. So what we repeat is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a digit, this is a digit, this is a digit, this is a digit. Now with the new level 3, I changed that logic a little bit. So we have 1 and a dot. And I make these two things a group. This is this group here. Then we have 2 and a dot. Then we have 3 and a dot. Then we have 4 and a dot. Okay, so this here is a group. This here is a group. This here is a group. Got it? Very nice. And then the only thing that I do is I control which dot is filled. So what I essentially want to have, let me remove that and show you what I want to have, is if the digit is empty, I symbolize that now with an underscore, and we are not at the correct position of the decimal separator, I want a dot which is not filled. Then I have the next one, and again I have a dot, oops, sorry, I have a dot which is not filled. Then I might have a 1, and then I want to have a dot, and I will fill this dot because this is the correct position of the decimal place, and so on, and so on, and so on. Let me show you the output, then I think it will be clear. I will scroll down, and here you see exactly what I mean. Do you see? We have a dot, we have a dot, we have a dot, but only one of them is filled. Got it? So it's really not a lot of work, a lot of code. And I can prove to you it works. See, I can change the number of digits. I can enter a value, and you will see it works perfectly fine, just as we want to have it. The key idea to make this one work is to move the ngFor up one level in a group. And then the code looks very similar to what we have before. Okay, fine, sounds good. Do you have any questions regarding these two levels? Now, what are the interesting aspects, the important aspects that you should take away from this exercise? As I told you, for the final exam, you do not need to worry about SVG, scalable vector graphics. That is, as I said, just for your interest. So you see what's possible. The important things are the signals on the one hand side, and the combination of the signals together with other Angular constructs like ngFor, data bindings, and so on. This is something that you definitely have to master in order to be successful in your exams and the final exam. Good? Fine. This was the discussion of your homework, and I would say we have a break in a few minutes, so we can do the break now and start with the new stuff. Start with the, I called it cash register, after the break. Okay, welcome back from the break. Let's continue. In the first hour, we did a quick discussion of your homework, level 2 and level 3, and now we want to take a look at additional and new requirements. Let me show you what we are going to build. Now, this is the ready-made exercise, and I would like to introduce you to the functionality that we are going to build. If you take a look at the routes, you will see that there is an additional route in my sample. Please do not copy it yet. We will develop it step by step. I just want to show you where we are heading to. I want to show you the goal that we have in this upcoming hour or 2 hours. And this route is called cash register. And let me show you how this cash register looks like. I will zoom in a little bit. On the left-hand side, you have a bunch of vegetables. And yeah, something like, what do we have? A cucumber. If I click on it, you see I have it here. Let's say this is my receipt. I can click on it again, and you see a cucumber costs obviously one, let's say euro, whatever. If we add some onions, see, I can add some onions. We can add some paprika, as you can see it here. If I click on it, the price increases. This thing was built when I didn't have a 7-segment display supporting precision, so it is a little bit wrong up here, but that's not the point. The point is, we want to build an application that supports the following features. First, on the left-hand side, we would like to display a list of products that we can buy. On the right-hand side, we want to have something like this, an items list, where we see the price, the total price, and the products that we bought. If I click on a single item multiple times, the price on the right-hand side increases. I do not see multiple lines here. And last but not least, we can use our 7 segments display, now maybe even the enhanced version, to display the total price. So imagine that this could be a scale at the supermarket or a cash register at a supermarket, where you take your bag and then you click on the items that you bought, and on the right hand side you see the total price and the items and the money that you have to spend for each vegetable. Okay? I prepared all these nice images for you, so you do not need to come up with your own sample data. Everything is prepared in that regards. So first, before we go into code, I would like to discuss with you, I would like to make a strategy for what we have to do, how we can approach this problem. Now, who has an idea? If you would have this problem, what would be possible steps in order to solve it? Any ideas? Okay, your idea is that we could create a component for a single card, right? Absolutely, we could do that. Yes, we could absolutely do that. Good idea. What else? What else do we have to do in order to solve this problem? Let's talk about components and services. What would you create services for this solution, or would you put the entire logic in components? We absolutely need services. Yes, you have.
Maybe a service for calculating the price.
Oh, nice! A service that is responsible for calculating this price. I agree. Where do you want to store the shopping cart? Should it also be part of a service? I think it should, because it is connected to what you just said. It's connected to the logic calculating the price. So we would have some kind of shopping cart service. Exactly. Remember, services are there to encapsulate data access logic, business logic, things like that. things which are not directly related to the user interface. Logic, like accessing backend services, calculating prices, maintaining a list of something that should be displayed, should never be put into components. Components always are there to implement the user interface part, the view part. Okay? So what we will end up here is we will have on the top our components, and directly below we have our services. And the services contain the business logic, the lists, the data access, and the components then access these services. Now in real life, we would probably have a backend service, a web API or a RESTful web API, from which we can read all these different vegetables that you see here on the left-hand side. However, for this exercise, I did not create a web API. We can, just to keep it simple, hard code the available vegetables directly in our code. That's fine. Okay? In the next exercise, which we will start today, you will be able to access backend services again. But for now, let's keep it simple. Let's continue to focus on signals and standalone components. And afterwards, later, we will also go in the direction of accessing services. So we agreed, we have some components and we have some services. Talking about components. Do we need multiple components? We already have one suggestion that we can bake this one into a separate component to make it easier to repeat these components. I agree, we could do that. We can think about whether we want to do that. Do you see any other components that you want to extract? Yes?
We could extract the list of the components or
This list here? Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, absolutely, we could do that. And we already have a component for the 7-segment display. Okay? Nice. Good. What else do we need to achieve this view, to achieve this goal? Yes, we need a grid. That is what we need. Can we identify the grid, how it is structured? This one is not that obvious, right? What we have is we have one grid that has here on the left-hand side the area with the vegetables. Then we have on the right-hand side this one here and this one here. So if the screen size is changed, this part on the left-hand side should change. The length of this should change, but the right-hand side must never disappear. Let me show you how that looks like. If I make it smaller, well, it's not super beautiful, I agree, but it shouldn't go away on the right-hand side. I think you get the idea, right? And on the right-hand side, we have a second grid, is that one, that consists of one column and another column. So we will have to think about how we structure that view. Again, this is not super beautiful and it's not 100% polished. I didn't have the time to polish everything, and I think it's not necessary because the point is that we want to understand the basic principles, and in your final year projects and things like that, you can do the polishing. Good. I like that. So let's get started and let's add the basics for our cash register into our sample application. Okay, what you see here is the code that we have written together last time. So 2 weeks ago we had our last lesson, and there we implemented this part of the application. Currently our application consists of a single route. This single route moves us directly to the number display test component that we have built together. Now we need an additional component, so let's first create this component. Let's call it cash register and add it to the route. That is just a repetition. You all should be able to create a component and add it to the route so far. We have done that multiple times. Come on, terminal, open up, please. Yeah, here we are. npx ng generate component cache register. Please follow along. Good. We have the cache register. Let's take a look at it. Here on the left-hand side, cache register. Here's the HTML. Here's the CSS. Here's the TypeScript. I'm fine with that. So let's add the route. Go to the routes. We add a new route path. I call it cache register. You can choose a different name here, whatever you want. And let's add the component, and that should be the cache register component. And now we added the additional routes. Let's do a quick repetition how routing works with standalone components. Routes here are in this app routes thingy. And if you take a look, we have this app config TypeScript where we have the app configuration. And here we have a provider where you use an Angular function which is called provide router. This code was generated. You do not need to write it on your own. And here we specify the routes. Okay? And if we take a look at the main TypeScript file, here exactly that config that I just showed you is passed to the Bootstrap application function. And remember, no more ng modules. Okay, we do not have any ng modules anymore. So the routes are defined here. They become part of the application configuration, and the application configuration is referenced here in main.ts when bootstrapping the application. That is what's happening with standalone components. Please revisit the video from last time if you have to recap something in that area. Good, let's try it. Let's open up our browser here, reload the window, go to cache register, and we see cache register works perfectly fine. What do you think? Should we start by displaying the list of vegetables? I think that would be a good thing, right? Let's try exactly that. Now we said that we want to have a service that should contain all our different offerings or whatever. So we need a service for that stands for retrieving the offerings, the products that we have from a web API. We do not have a web API. We can hard code it. That's fine. How would you call this service? Make a suggestion for a name for the service. Before we do that, again, let's make it clear what this service does. It offers us a list of products with all their details, price, URL of the image, and so on, so that we can use it in our component to visualize this list of products. Give me suggestions for names for the service. So we have two suggestions, products service and shopping service. Let's make a democratic vote. Who is for products service? 2. Who is for shopping service? Okay, a clear majority for shopping service. So let's call it shopping service. npx ng generate service shopping. Please note, we don't call it shopping service here because then we run into the danger of ending up with the shopping service. Just call it shopping and it will be called shopping service automatically. See, now we have our shopping service here. In real life, this shopping service would now be equipped with methods that care for accessing the backend service. Not here. Before we fill shopping service with life, let's use this shopping service. Please note that we still have this injectable provided in root. Okay? We could remove that one, then we would have to, in our cache register component, import the service manually. Okay? That would be necessary. In our case, we have, oops, sorry, I closed the file. I didn't want to close the file, shopping service. In our case, we have this injectable, so it should be possible to directly get our service here in the constructor of the cash register component. Let's try that. Let's say we define a constructor, and in the constructor we want to have public shopping service, and we want to have the shopping service. This is dependency injection. Can you remember from last year? On the one hand side, you define the service, and on the other hand side, you go here in the constructor and say, I want to have a shopping service. This is dependency injection. And Angular will do the pairing. Angular knows about all the services that you provide. It knows about the services that you want to have, and Angular brings them together. We can simply try if our app still works. We can take a look. Yes, looks good. Let's open up the console just to make sure we don't have any mistakes here. So everything is fine. If you want to prove the point, you can remove the injectable here, and that will lead to a crash in our application. See? Because if we do not make it injectable, this is no longer a service. Angular sees this constructor, sees the shopping service, has no idea what the shopping service should be, and therefore we get an error. That is an important one. Now we have the shopping service. Looks good. As I said, I have prepared a list of vegetables for you, so you do not need to type this code. Let me quickly look it up in GitHub so that I can send you a link to the code that you can copy into your shopping service. Okay, here you can find the data or the code that we need. In my sample solution, I didn't call it shopping service, I call it offerings service. That's just a name, it's fine, your suggestion is good. And please take a look at the code that is in here. You see, first we have an enum, which is called unit of measure, per kilogram, per 100 grams, each bulb or bunch. You buy vegetable in different units of measure, and this enumeration represents the unit of measure. Then we have a type, you can see it here, export type offering. Each offering consists of a name, could be carrot or cucumber, a price, the unit of measure, and the URL to the image. So the first thing that I would like you to do is copy these type informations, line 3 to 16, and copy it into our into our shopping service. Not in the service at the beginning of the file, I think is a good location to put it here. So here we have the shopping service, and above we have the enum and the type. Do you have any questions regarding this enum, this type, or any other TypeScript features that I use here? Nice, no questions in that regards. Now the next thing that we need, if I scroll down a little bit, is the real data. And here you see from line 27, see that one, to, I did a lot of work for you, line 214 are all the different vegetables that we can use in our implementation. Good. Let's copy this one and let's put it here in the shopping service. I don't need the constructor yet, so we can simply poof, add all this data. Let's take a look at an example. Here you see we have almonds. They cost per kilogram 10 euro, and here we have a URL. And if I didn't screw up, if I click on it, we should see the image of an almond here behind this URL. By the way, I'm using a service here. How is it called? This is the IBB image. Was it? Yeah, this one. I use this service quite frequently. It's fully stuffed with advertisements, so it's not a very beautiful site, but it is a simple and easy way of storing some images for samples. So if you want to quickly store an image and you do not have some cloud storage, you can create an account there and drag and drop your images. But be aware, this is advertising everywhere. okay, they offer a free service. It's somewhat useful. So granted, they use advertisements, and that's fine for me. Good. So you see all the different offerings, as you can see here. I want to repeat, in real life, we would obviously not have directly an array of offerings, which is public. In real life, we would have methods with which we get this data from the backend. Let's keep it simple for now. Okay, let's try to display the available products in our nice little cash register implementation. Okay? This is not a signal. Let's keep it simple, okay? Just plain vanilla static read-only data. Very simple, should not be a problem for anybody. Let's try that. I want your job is to display a very simple list of all the vegetables. You do not need to format it yet. Just print, I don't know, the description and the price or something. 5 minutes, please try it on your own, and then I'm going to show you. It's a very simple exercise for ngFor and data binding. Please try it. So do you already have a list of offerings on your screen? Let me show you how we can do that. We simply, in our case, maybe do a div so that we have some kind of container. Then let's do another div where we will put all our products. Let's call this one our container. Oops. Let's call this one the list of products or offerings or whatever you want to say. And here we simply make an unordered list. Inside of this unordered list, we put a list item. And in this list item, we can use a star ngFor. And we can simply say let's say p off. And then we can take a look at the TypeScript code. I consciously used the keyword public here to keep everything simple, so we can directly access the shopping service. So we can simply say shopping service.offerings, simply iterate through the offerings, and here let's say we want to display the name and yeah, some price information. Didn't I call it price? Price 0. Okay. Let's take a look. Good. See? Looks good. Let me show you the code again. Very, very simple. I mean, the formatting is not necessary. It's just nice to have. GitHub Copilot automatically suggested this formatting, and I simply accepted it, so it's fine. If you had a problem, please finish it so that we can see all the products here. Personally, I always try to implement the logic of the UI first, and then I focus on the styling. So we will not write CSS now. We will simply accept that it's ugly. That's fine. Let's focus on the business logic first. Now the next thing that I want to implement together with you, and that's the interesting part of this exercise here, is the shopping cart. Now my question to you is, do you want to have the logic of the shopping cart inside of the shopping service, or do you want to have a separate service for managing the shopping cart? I think both options are fine. We have here a very small application. The list of products and the shopping cart are content-wise somewhat related, so you could argue, let's put them in the same service. But you can also say, I want nice separation between the list of products and the shopping cart. I want to have two separate services. Both options are fine. Let's do a democratic vote again, okay? I think the majority is for the for a dedicated shopping cart service. Let's do that, okay? Let's go here and let's say npx ng generate service shopping cart. Is it okay if I call it like that? Good. Let's create the shopping cart service. Shopping cart service has been created. Here it is. It's automatically injectable in root, so we can directly go to our cash register and make sure that we get here our shopping, I will just call it cart, so I do not need to type so much, shopping cart service. Think, that's good. Now we have the shopping cart service. Our app still works. I always check in the console whether we have some errors here. Okay, we see that the currency pipe that GitHub Copilot suggested is not perfect. Okay, that's fine. We will remove it anyways later on. But no errors. Could you follow along? Now we have the shopping cart service. Let's go to the shopping cart service and let's discuss what the shopping cart service should contain. Suggestions, please. What should we put in the shopping cart service? What I want, thank you for this suggestion. We do not want to have an array of products which are in the shopping cart, but we really want to have a signal of all the different offerings that we have in our cart. Exactly, that is what I would like to have. Now, let's say we have a public, let's call it shopping cart. And as you just said, let's make it a signal of offering, exactly, and of course array. And we will start with an empty array. That is good. Now we need some imports. First we need to import the signal, that is fine, and second we need to import the offering, and then all the errors are gone. Please note, if you compare this signal here with this signal here, that on the right hand side here I did not specify a type, I just specified a value, while on the left hand side I specified the value, which is an array, and the type. Why do you think I did that? Why is that relevant here on the left hand side, but in the other case not? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, because you've only specified an empty array.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. That's the point. You nailed it here. If I remove that one, then the type of shopping cart will be a writable signal of never or any or unknown or something strange. That's not a good idea. If I specify the type here in this type parameter, offering array, then I really get a nice writable signal of offering array, and this is exactly what I want. Very nice. What else do we need inside of our shopping cart service? Now we have an empty shopping cart. What's missing? A possibility to, yep, exactly, you both are right, add items. We will not implement logic for deleting items and things like that. Let's keep it simple, just add items. Good, very good. Let's do exactly that. Let's offer a method, public, let's call it add to cart, and cart, and let's say we get an offering of type offering, and it returns nothing. Now the question is, what could we do? How does the logic look like? Well, let me show you the wrong approach first. Please do not follow along. I could say, okay, this shopping cart, shopping cart, then let's read the property and let's simply say push of the offering. That is wrong. If you have a signal and you read this signal, you must not change this signal. That will lead to, in best case, wrong data in the UI, in worst case, a crash of your application. This is the wrong way of changing something. Well, the other thing that we could do, we learned that before, we could say set. But when we call set here, we have to set the entire object. We have to replace the entire object. But in our case, I simply want to add one element and do some additional business logic to in fact maybe add the element, because it could be that we already have cucumber on our shopping list and then we simply want to add one. We want to simply add the price. Understand what I mean? So this set thing is not the correct way of doing it. If you would like to change the content of an object or array, listen closely, this is important. If you would like to change the content of something which is inside a signal, there is a dedicated method for that. And this method is called update. You get the current status of the signal as a parameter, and then you can specify a method, and inside of this method you can change the content of cart. Okay? And you have to return the new cart from this update method. And this is exactly what the signal will do. It will pass in the cart. You can manipulate it or you can copy it. You can do whatever you want as long as you return the new status of the signal at the end of this method. Okay, this is what we want to do. Now let's think about how we can do that. First, let's make it very, very simple. Let's simply say we have a new cart, and this cart should be a copy of the old cart. It looks like that. I'm not sure if you know that in TypeScript you can copy an array like that, but now you know it. This simply copies the cart. Then we can take this new cart and push the offering. Something like this. And then we can return it. And that will be the correct code for updating the content of an array in a signal. So remember that. If you have an array, do it like that. Yes?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm here.
Yes, I don't see any reason why we can't use update the cart directly. So what we can do is we can simply take the cart here and push it and return the cart here. In our case, in our very simple case, we could even make this part simpler. We could simply say take the cart and add the offering that we would like to return, and then we can even get rid of that one and get rid of that one. That would make the code even simpler. In this case, I need to copy it because I append it at the end. Okay? Good point. I will stick to the longer version. I will stick to, no, this version. This version. I will stick to this version because we need to add a little bit of extra logic. Otherwise, our business logic will be broken. I give you a second to catch up and write this code in your version of the Angular code. Please do so. Now, if we add a single offering multiple times, we would simply like to add the price accordingly. So if we add a single cucumber, and the cucumber costs €1, then we have a single element in it with €1, and if we click on the cucumber a second time, the price should change to €2. If we click on it a third time, it should change to €3. I think you got the point. Let me show you how I could do that here in this in this code here. What I can do, I can say const existing offering, and then I simply say give me the cart and find the offering with the corresponding name. GitHub Copilot will write the name for me. It will simply say find the element in the cart where the name equals to the offering name and store the result in existing offering. Existing offering is either the offering that it could find or undefined if there is no such offering. So if we add cucumber for the first time, we get undefined. If we add it for the second time, we get the existing offering. Then we can use an if existing offering. So if we found it already, we simply say, take the existing offering, use the price in euro, and add the offering price in euro. And in this case, we return the cart without any changes, because we do not want to add the vegetable a second time. The vegetable is already in the cart, so we simply have to add the price. However, this approach is wrong. Why is this approach wrong? Can anybody see the logic error in this approach? It's hard to spot. You are on the right track, but not perfectly. You are right with your suggestion that it has to do something with references. You have to understand that we have in the background here our list of offerings. That is all the products that we offer in our shop. And here, take a look at it, we push directly the element from the array of the offerings in the cart. So if I write the cart here, we do not copy the element, but we simply add a reference, this one, a reference to the existing offering into our cart. This is what we do here. And if we change the price here, we do not change the price of the element which is in the cart, but we change the price here. And next time we add a cucumber with a changed price. Not a good idea. So always think about where are my references. And the solution is very simple. When we add something in the cart, we have to copy the element and put a copy of the vegetable in the cart. And just like an array, we can copy an object by simply using this so-called spread operator, something like this, and now I'm good. Did you know that you can copy an object like that? It's a shallow copy, not a deep copy, but in our case, that's perfectly fine because we don't need a deep copy here. And that's it. Now we have, for the first time, an update method of a signal, and we have a possibility to add items to the cart. Now let's do a break, and after the break, we will add this functionality to our component. Okay, welcome back after the break. Before the break, we created the shopping cart service, and we discussed the possibility to use the update method in order to change the content of a value inside of a signal, in our case, an array. So remember, if you would like to add an element in the array or delete something from it, do it in the update method. Two other things, quick recap. This is how you can copy an object, and you can also use the same spread operator to copy an array. Nice, so let's add this functionality to our component. We don't care about the user interface yet. We don't want to make it beautiful. We simply want to add the functionality. So let's go to cash register. And I would suggest that we add a simple click handler on the list of products. Can anybody remember from last year how we add a click handler? Event binding, anybody? How? Yep. Something like this? No, not curly braces. Round braces. Exactly, this is how we do it. And then we specify the name of the method that we would like to call here. What would you say? Which method should we call? Should we create a new method in cash register component, or what should we do? Any idea? I agree, sounds good. We can directly go to the cart service and call the add to cart method. We could wrap it in a method in the controller, but we don't need to. And here we can simply add the offering. I like that. So when somebody clicks on the list item, the element is automatically added to the cart. Well, last but not least, we need to display the cart. Let's maybe do it here after the product. Let's add another div. Let's call it, I would suggest, receipt. Like, yeah, receipt. And then we display the different elements of the shopping cart, right? So let's do that. Let's simply add, how do we do that? Let's add an unordered list for now. Let's use a list item. Repeat the list item with the ngFor, exactly like we did before. Let C of cart dot shopping cart. This is a signal, so we have to call it in order to read it. And inside of the li, let's simply display again the c.name, and yeah, let's display the price again. I think that is fine. Same story as before, but this time we're using a signal. So let's give it a try. Go here to the browser. Where is it? Here is our browser. Let's get rid of that one. If I scroll down, oh, I already clicked on it. Let me reload it. See, if we add a zucchini, I click on the zucchini and we have the zucchini. I click a second time, we have another price. I click a third time, looks good. Let's add a watermelon, sounds good. Tomato, here, pumpkins, potatoes. Let's add a bunch of potatoes. It works fine. Please try it. If you click on a vegetable up here, it should automatically appear here. So the updating should work. Tell me if you have any problems with this code. Nice. So let's do the last element and then we can format everything and we're done. Let's add a total. And here I would like to see the, let's sketch it like that, total price of the shopping cart displayed with a 7 segments display. Now this is something that you can try. Try it, think about where you want to have the business logic to calculate the total price and how the data binding would look like. I give you, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like this. I will ask you in a few minutes how far you are. This is something that by now everybody should manage to solve. So give it a try. So let me show you a simple approach to solve this problem. What we can do is we can simply go in our service, the shopping cart service, and offer an additional signal. But we are not going to use a signal that stores data. We are going to write a signal that computes data. So we're going to use the computed method, which we learned about 2 weeks ago. So let's define and use signal total price, for instance, and make it a computed signal. Here in this computed signal, we can simply calculate the total price. First, let's make a simple one. Let sum equals 0 for offering of this shopping cart value. Does this make sense? Well, not perfect. We have to help GitHub Copilot a little bit. Something like this. And then we can simply return the sum. We have a computed signal. This computed signal goes through the entire shopping cart and adds the price in euro to the sum and returns the sum. Note, that's the beautiful thing here. This computed method will only calculate the sum if something in the underlying signals like shopping cart changes. And the value is cached, so even if Angular needs to display the value, the cached value is taken. So this is a very efficient way of doing that. By the way, you could express that a little bit differently. Let me show you how you can write it in a single line. Maybe I'll do a second one, and then you can choose total price with reduce computed. And then we simply say, give me the shopping cart, reduce. Have you ever worked with the reduce function before? You'd give it two parameters, the sum and the offering, and then you simply say sum plus offering price euro and the starting value, which is 0. This starts with a value of 0. For every element in the shopping cart, it calls this lambda function, and it takes the current sum and adds the price. Then it has a new sum. Then it calls this lambda function again with a new sum, adds the next price. Then it calls the next lambda function again and again and again and again until it has a reduced value. It's an aggregation function. So all these lines of code can be expressed in a single line of code like that. Both are fine. I don't care which one you prefer. Some people argue that writing it down like that, it's much easier to read. Some people say, I do not want to write so many lines if I can write it in a single line. Both arguments are okay for me. Choose yourself. Okay? Now inside of the cash register component HTML, we can now use our existing component. Here it is. Let's make it the app 7 segment number component, but we have a problem. The system tells us that app 7 segment number doesn't exist. Who can remember from last week or from 2 weeks ago what I'm missing? Exactly, the import. Very good. So let's go to TypeScript and add in the import the 7 segment number component. Then this error goes away. Now we need to do a binding here. And I can't remember what the name of the property was, so let's take a look. It was called number. Well, kind of obvious. Number. And this number property can now be bound to our cart. And here I'm going to use the total price. This is a signal, so we have to call it in order to get the correct value. And that should work properly. So we are binding one signal to another signal. And that makes it very efficient. Let's take a look. Let's open up the cash cash register. Scroll down. Let's add a zucchini. Let's add a watermelon. Let's add a tomato. Doesn't work. Why? I think I forgot the rounding. In the basic version that we did last week, we do not have decimal places. So I think we have to do some rounding here. Let's say math.round this one, because I don't, if I can remember correctly, our basic version last week without the decimal places didn't support decimals. So let's try it again. Add the zucchini. Yes, okay, now it's rounded. Yep, I add some of them and it looks good. If I add another paprika, oh, sorry, here I have to click. Yep, looks good, works, perfect. Please give it a try. I show you the code again. Sorry that I forgot the rounding at the beginning, but that shouldn't be a problem. This is how it should look like. Nice, so let's spend the remaining minutes of this hour in CSS. Let's format this stuff a little bit. And for the formatting, because CSS is not a core element of this course, for the formatting we will simply copy element by element some things of the CSS code, the SCSS code that I prepared. So please open the cache register SCSS file. It's currently empty. And then inside of the GitHub repository, you can find here in the cache register also the SCSS file. And we are going to take a look at it step by step. The first thing that we will copy in here is this container stuff here. See? This container element. Let's copy the container element inside of the SCSS and let's take a look at what's going on here. It is again a CSS grid, but this time the CSS grid is configured a little bit more complicated because we do not just have template columns, we also have template rows. So this time we have multiple columns and multiple rows. And if you take a look at the right-hand side, you see a kind of strange syntax here. You have this brackets here, products start, then you have 3 fractions, then items start, then a min-max of 1 fraction and 150 pixel, and then the end. And in the rows you have total start, then auto, then item start, then 1 fraction, then end. Let's try to understand what's going on here. Let's do that by drawing the screen here. Let's focus first on the columns. You have to understand that these things here with the brackets they represent the borders where the different columns touch each other. So the products start here represent this one. Now if we say here is our limit, on the left hand side we have our vegetables, on the right hand side we have our receipt, let's use a different color here, then this item start represents this touching point. And the end here represents that touching point. Got it? Now in the middle, for instance, this 3 fractions says that we have 3 fractions plus 1 fraction is 4 fractions. That's 25%. So 3 times 25% means that we have 75% of the total available width of the screen on the left hand side. That's the 3 fractions. And 1 fraction means in this case 25%, because in total we have 4 fractions. 3 plus 1 is 4. If we divide 100% by 4, we get 25. So therefore 3 times 25 is on the left hand side and 25% is on the right hand side. However, the min-max tells us that the right hand side must never be smaller than 150 pixel. So if 25% becomes smaller than 150 pixel, 150 pixel are taken. Got it? Nice, right? Now if we take a look at the rows, we have this one here, this one, here, and now I run out of colors. I don't have any more colors. I'm very sorry, so I have to reuse red again. This one is that one. Got it? Now, if we take a look at the size, auto means that it should simply take the necessary space that the content uses. So it will take a look at the content, how large is the content, and size the row accordingly. And 1 fraction means take the rest. Did you understand it? It's a little bit more complicated, but it is really powerful, isn't it? And now that we have these named dividers here, We can easily reference them when positioning our elements. There are so many different ways of specifying how a grid looks like. This is not the only way how you can specify a grid. You should definitely watch some YouTube videos or take a look at the documentation. It's very powerful. But this is just one example. So we have the container. Next, we will take a look at the products, because remember, this was the container, and now we are focusing on the left-hand side. We want to have the products. Let's do that. Let's go into our GitHub repository and copy the products section here into our code. This is the product section. Now first, we specify where the product should be. Remember, our grid looks like that. Okay? This product start here represented that border. This total start here represented that border here. And now let's take a look what I specified here. I said the product list should start at exactly that touching point. Product start and total start. But the row should not be limited to this element, but we are using different color as span 2. So we want the products to be visible in that area of, oh God, I'm not good in drawing with the mouse, but I think you got the idea, right? Please note that this is not a divide. This is just the way you specify multiple parameters. The parameters are separated by the slash. This does not mean total start divided by span 2. It's just two different parameters. Begin at row total start and use up 2 rows. Got it? Yeah, then we have a little bit of a margin, a little bit of a font size, and so on. And the rest inside the product is not usable yet because we do not have an image yet. We are going to do that later on. Okay? So that is this part of the specification of the CSS. Next one, let's take the receipt and take a look. Oh, we take the price too, okay? Let's take the receipt and the total and the price, just the rest of the SCSS. Now let's analyze again how this receipt part will work. I will draw again. This is our screen. This is our layout. Here we have the layout. Now let's analyze it again. The column should be item start. Where is item start? Item start is that one. Here you see the item start. Here you see the item start. New column. The grid row is again item start. So it's that one. It's this one. This is it. So the items of the receipt should start here. And we did not specify any span, so it will take up exactly that part of the grid. Understood? But wait, there is another grid here. Why do we have another grid? Well, of course, because inside of this thing we again have a grid, and it should look something like that. So here we simply specify a new grid. But in this case, we do not specify rows again, because we don't know how many rows we have. The number of rows depends on our shopping cart. So we use exactly the same concept as I showed you before with the forms. We simply say the first element goes in that column, the second element goes in that column, the third element goes in the next row in that column, the fourth element goes in this column. The fifth element goes in the third row, and then the next row. And I think by now you should understand what I mean. So note that here we are using just the grid template column and not the grid template column and the grid rows. Got it? And with that, we have our nested grid. We have a grid inside of a grid. And at your matura, at your final year, at your final exam, you have to know all this stuff by heart. No, I'm just kidding. Don't worry. At the matura, I'm pretty sure we will do it this year exactly the same. We will not bother you with some design work. So at the matura, you will probably have a fully featured CSS worked out by us teachers. Maybe you will have to change minimal things. Maybe you have to apply certain classes or things like that. But don't worry, you have limited time at your final exam, so we will not bother you with doing some design work without access to GitHub Copilot or elaborated Mozilla Developer Network pages and things like that. So this is something, at the tests here at the final year, I want you to do things like that, but not at the final test, the Matura. Okay? Because there you don't have internet access. With internet access, I demand that you're able to do something like this. Questions so far? So let's take a look what happened here in our website. Okay, something is already there. It's not very beautiful, but we have on the left-hand side, as you see, our products. On the right-hand side, we have, well, something like a total. Let's click on them, and you see we also have an items list. So it's not perfectly ruined. It's not beautiful, but it's okay. There is already a grid going on here. Good? Okay. Good, good. Now, if I can remember correctly, last time I made this thing pretty large. So what I'm going to do in order to adjust it a little bit, I will simply pump this one up to 250 pixel. And no, that's not the way it goes. Let me quickly see why this is the divider exactly. So we are not going to polish this, but if you want to have it a little bit less ugly, simply go to 7-segment digit component and change the width and the height a little bit. We pumped it up last week pretty extremely to see all the beauty of our 7-segment display, but now we simply want to display it a little bit smaller. If you use these values, you have a decent display. It's okay. Yeah? So we are not embarrassed if somebody takes a look at our example. Good. Nice. So let's finish everything else up. First, let's talk about the products on the left-hand side. Let's talk about this view here. Now, I think you suggested that we create a separate component for displaying a single item. Please don't be angry with me if I don't do that. It's perfectly fine. Yes, you can do that. You can try it at home if you want. But in this case, it's really just a simple image and a text. So it would be fine to embed it directly here. But you're absolutely right. In a real-world application, the view would probably be more difficult, and therefore it would make sense to put it in a separate component. But for now, let's keep things simple. So let's go into our code here to the cash register, and let's change what we see here. We do no longer want to see an unordered list, so let's remove that one. Instead, I am going to use another div here, which is a class product. So this is our single product. Why do I do that? If you take a look at the SCSS here, you will see that inside of the products, we have a product, and I already have defined things like the width, and I have a nice border, and I have nice margins, and the other things, we are going to discuss them in a second. So let's do this with a div. Of course, we need an ngFor, and we had that before, so I don't need to talk about it again. Let O of offer, no, how did I call it? Shopping service dot offerings. What was it called? Yes, offerings, exactly. That is our ngFor. And then we also need the click handler and that click handle, we also had it before. It was cart and add to cart of the offering. Yes. And I think that's nice. That's a single product. Inside of the single product, we bake in the image. The image has a source. The source is bound to the offering image URL. That should give us the image URL. And finally, we simply print the name. Let me quickly check. Yes, beautiful. Do you now understand what I mean? You suggested to take these two lines and put them in a separate component. And again, yes, you're right. In a real-world app, it wouldn't be just two lines. There it would make sense. But in our simple case, extracting these two lines in a separate component would be a kind of an overkill. The first line did not change from our initial implementation. I simply switched from a list item li to a div and an embedded image and the text here. Now let's take a look at the CSS. It's really not very complicated. What we do is we say the width of every single product should be 100 pixel. If we pump that one up, you will see that our images become larger. So they scale nicely, see? So even if we do 250 pixel, do you see the difference? Yes, of course you do. So I think we had 100, right? What else do we have here with the product? The text align is center. So if we would say left, you would see that the product name is here on the left-hand side, obviously. We have some margin and some paddings and so on. And the image, that's the image tag. This is an interesting one. It says 100%. If we would not do that one, you see what's going to happen? The image would be displayed at its initial size, and therefore it's wrong. We have to tell the image that it should use up 100% of the available space, and we constrained the available space using this width here. So we say the container where the image is in is 100 pixel wide. So we can say here, hey image, take 100% of the available space. And that makes our images scale nicely. If we make it smaller, maybe to 50 pixel, the image will also be scaled down. If we make it larger to 500 pixel, the image will also be scaled up. Nice solution, right? Good. Now, products done. And they should still work. Try it. Click on them, and you will see on the right-hand side, works fine. Now let's talk about this part here on the right. Here, in the receipt part, we have again this nested grid. Can you remember? And what did I tell you? The first element in the content gets in the first column, first row. The second in the second column, first row. Then we have a line break, and we go on and on and on and on. Can you follow along? Is it clear what I mean? I had troubles understanding that when I looked at the, grids for the first time, so let me describe it again. Imagine that you have 1 item, 2 items, 3 items, 4 items, and last one, this one, and this one. We always have, here we have the name, and then we have the price. I will shorten it. Then we have, I'm talking about HTML elements here, right? Then we have the name, and then we have the price. And then we have the name, and then we have the price. This is how the HTML looks like. We simply have a container, and there we have a HTML tag for the name, HTML tag for the price, HTML tag for the name, HTML tag for the price. Now, because we implemented a grid using grid templates columns with 2 columns, the system is going to do the following. It's going to create 2 columns, and it will put the first element in the first row, first column. Then it will take the second element in the second column, first row. Then, because we only have 2 columns, it will take the third element in the second row, first column. And then we take the price. Because we have 2 columns, we have to start a new row. Am I boring you already? I hope so, because then you understood what I want to tell you. See? This is exactly what I wanted to have. Good? Is it okay for you if we do a few more minutes? You will have the break, but let's finish that, then do the break, and then discuss a new topic. Is that okay for you? Good. Fine. Because we have one final tiny, teeny little bit to do. Let's take a look at the HTML. Here we have our shopping cart. We have the unordered list. Maybe before you delete the code, maybe copy the ngFor statement, because we are going to need it in a second, okay? Now you will learn a very important trick for Angular. The problem is that we need to apply ngFor, but we need to apply ngFor to 2 elements. Understand what I mean? I can build a div here, something like this, and then I can build a subdiv, which is the c.name. This is the first element. And I can build a subdiv, which is the, what is it? It is the c.price, and let's format it as a number with at least 1 in front and 2 in the back, something like this. So I can do it like that. Price in euro, I think, right? Yes, price in euro. What? Oh, colon. I forgot the colon. Good. So this one is simple, but it will not work. This does not work. It's not displayed as a grid. Hi. This does not work. As you can see it here, nothing is displayed in a grid. You see? It's kind of strange. It takes the first element here, the second element here, a first element here, the second element here. The problem is what? Can anybody spot the problem? Exactly. Line number 10 is the big problem, because we do not have this and this and then this and this, but what we have is we have a container around this element and we have a container around this element, and they get formatted by the grid. Does anybody happen to know a solution to that problem? I have a solution for this problem, and it's called, drumroll, ngContainer. It's called ngContainer. ngContainer is the magic sauce. Why didn't you know that? I mean, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. ngContainer is an element on which you can apply ngFor, ngIf, and things like that, but poof, it will disappear once the HTML is rendered. So you will not see the ngContainer in the resulting HTML. And with that, everything is awesome. Click, 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 click. Woohoo! King of the world. Got it? So ngContainer is really a neat little trick. Whenever you need something to repeat ngFor or to conditionally display ngIf, and you do not want to visualize or represent it in the HTML DOM, then use the ngContainer. And ngContainer is particularly powerful in conjunction with the CSS Grid. So, done. We have a nice little cache register with CSS Grid, with standalone components, with signals. Good. And now it's time for the break. Okay, we made it in the last hour. We made it. We finished our cache register, our first larger Angular project with signals and standalone components and CSS grids and many, many other things. Now it's your turn. Now I have a little bit of a break because I have a homework for you. This is a project that I want you to work on in the next 2 weeks. I called it the trip pin example. Here you see a nice hero image that I created for you. Share your travels with friends. And the topic is the following. Microsoft is so nice to provide us a sample service, a free sample service, a REST API that we can use to do some exercises. Did we already take a look at trip pin last year? I don't think so. Did we? Good. Now, trip pin is, as I said, a REST service, and you can find a link to a description of this trip pin service. Here you see it. Directly linked in the homework that is already in your GitHub repository. Essentially what TripPin is all about, it's about a database with which people can store their travels and share their travels with other people, like a travel history, a travel log, if you want something like this. The service itself is built on top of the OData standard. Maybe we will talk about OData later this year, but for us, it doesn't matter that it's OData currently. We simply see it as a regular REST API, just an API that we have done in the last year. Now, I want you to build a brand new Angular application, and no, you don't get a sample solution at the beginning from me. I want you to work on this example. I can provide a sample solution later on. What should this application do? First, we want to be able to look for a certain person, or let's say people. In order to be able to look for people, we need a REST API call. And I have added some sample calls for you. Looking up a certain person looks like this. You access the trip pin service and you say /people, and then you can specify a filter criteria directly in the query string. It's like SQL, structured query language, but in the query string. That's OData. That's the idea of OData. So you specify a where clause in the query string. You can also choose which columns you would like to get back, again with the query string. The important two keywords here are $filter and $select. They are part of the OData standard. It's just text. It's just a query string, right? Now, I have to note that if you want to do this example, you need to have a trip pin key. And it's very simple to get a trip pin key. Just navigate to this URL. You can do that now if you want. And then you will get, every one of you will get a custom key. This custom key looks something like this. This is my key. It's not secret because I don't store any relevant information there. Got it? So everybody gets a custom key, because then everybody can also write data to TripPin. It's not a read-only service. You can write data to TripPin, but don't worry, they will clean up after you. So in a few days, your written data will be gone. Okay? But for exercising, it's really, really nice. So with this URL, I can imagine a website that looks like this. Here is my screen, maybe up there. I have something like a name filter, and then I can specify here a name filter, and below you display a nice little grid, where you display, I don't know, the first name, the last name, and you use some rows and columns, and I think you got the idea, right? That's the first part of the homework. So you display a list of people, a list of, people, persons. I always get confused with that. I think you get the idea. I can filter using the names just as seen in the sample request. Please use a CSS Grid just to practice it. And at the end of the day, I want to have a link inside of the grid with which I can say, for this person, I would like to create the trip. If I click on this link, I get to the trips area. In the trips area, I get a list of all the trips of the selected person. And again, I have prepared for you a sample request for how to get all the trips of a certain person. The key is that you specify after /people here the primary key, and that is the username that you got back from the original list. Okay, so you say /people/r_stropbeck if that's my username. Got it? And then you just append /trips. And inside of the trips, you can filter here based on the name of the trip or the description of the trip. Got it? That gives me a list of all my travels. Good so far? That shouldn't be a problem too. I can imagine again maybe a nice little filter form at the top, maybe a nice little grid on the top, on the bottom, having a list of travels that I already did. I think you get the idea. And last but not least, I want to have a form with which I can enter data of a trip and store the trip in the database. Again, I have my escape key broke yesterday. I have to fix it on the weekend. I have a sample solution for you, or sample request for you. This time it's a post request, and this is the data that you have to put in. So give me an input form with which I can fill out something like this. Now let me tell you what I expect from you. I expect from you that you start today, for the rest of the remaining time in this lesson, you can start with a project. You have me to help you overcome any initial problems. And I expect you until next week to work on the person list. Okay? I would really like to see that many of you also manage to implement the list of travels, the trip list. I do not expect you to solve the problem with the form. Next week, we are going to take a look at so-called reactive forms in more details. We took a small little look at it 2 weeks ago when we have seen the form field stuff. Maybe you can remember it. I will show you more on that one. However, if you feel bored, if you want to do some extra stuff, you can try this part of the exercise too. Maybe you can figure it out by taking a look at the documentation or some YouTube videos or asking ChatGPT. If you want, you can try it. But I expect you at least to finish the person list. I would like to see you finishing the trip list, the travel list. The form is optional. Good? Nice. So spend the rest of the time, ask me questions if you have any problems setting up the project, and then do the rest as a homework until next week. And next week, as I said, we will take a closer look at implementing forms with reactive forms.